I've been hearing since I walked into the studio this morning all about rand weakness. Are we looking at the last days when the rand is around 7 and it can't go back below 7?
Morning, Godfrey. Well, yes, certainly our view is that in the short term, the rand's weakening bias remains firmly entrenched. We saw a bit of rand strength come into the currency on Friday, and that was partly a function of some rumors or news that Eskom's dollar bond, some of the proceeds of that sale may be repatriated, and so we saw the rand strengthen slightly on that news. Also helping rand strength on Friday was news that although the Walmart Massmart deal has gotten shareholder approval, it still hasn't cleared all of the regulatory hurdles. So there was some expectation that there could be increased foreign inflows into South Africa from those two developments. But certainly in the short term, with the bond sell-off continuing, we think that the rand certainly is going to maintain its weakening bias, and we would see rand bears possibly targeting 717, 722 in the short term.
I was actually going to ask for your call for the week, for the range for the rand. What do you see rand dollar trading at this week? And what do you see as the major factors driving that weakness from what you're saying now?
Well, Godfrey, as I said, we'd be looking in the short term for the rand to head to 717, possibly even 722, and really a function of continued sell-off in the bond market. Bonds had a very good run last year, but we've seen an increasing rotation out of bonds, and certainly international developments. China's continued monetary policy tightening has sort of taken the sheen off of most emerging markets as well as commodity currencies. So in the short term, the rand's weakening bias remains firmly entrenched.
But at the same time, we're also beginning to see figures suggesting that South Africa's economy is beginning to strengthen, and we're seeing a pickup in that economic strength. This week, we're expecting the SA leading indicators from the Reserve Bank. Do you see perhaps a bounce back, perhaps based on that number coming and giving a good reading? The expectation from most analysts is that we're likely to see a slight improvement.
Yes, absolutely, Godfrey. I mean, this would be the leading indicator now for November, and we saw in the month from October onwards, we saw improvements in most economic indicators, manufacturing, retail sales. So we would certainly be hoping to see that reflected in an uptick in the business, in the leading indicator for South Africa. But having said that, South Africa's growth prospects for the year certainly don't stand out as being exceptionally bright relative to other emerging markets.
At the same time, we are now beginning to see a decoupling, if you like, between the rand dollar and rand and dollar euro. I mean, we're seeing the euro dollar nicely bouncing around 133 and going on to 135. At the same time, we're seeing the rand weakening. Why have we had this delink, do you think?
Yes, Godfrey, well, the relationship between the rand and the euro does tend to be somewhat off and on. And at this point, we think that the rand really is suffering from the fact that its domestic fundamentals perhaps aren't measuring up when you look at South Africa in a basket of emerging market peers. And so you've seen, as we mentioned, a tremendous sell-off in bonds after a very, very good year last year. And we think that those factors are really what's leading to rand weakness at this stage, in spite of a bit of strength in the euro.
22 billion rand is what I've seen so far, suggesting has been sold out of the South African bond market, South African assets, particularly bonds. Do you see this sell-off continuing, and for how long are we likely to see this sell-off going on for?
Well, as you mentioned, it's been quite an intensive sell-off thus far. We would be obviously expecting that it would peter out and not continue at this pace indefinitely. But as for what a catalyst would be, there are a number of different factors that would be influencing foreigners' perceptions of South Africa, and therefore inflows into the bond market. So I would be hesitant to actually call a date as to when we might see this trend drying up.